Hi, friends of Boys and Girls Club. It's Miss JoAnne again, and we are back talking about islands. And yesterday we talked about the Caribbean islands. So we're going to go back and we're kind of going to revisit that. Now, when we talk about the Caribbean, there is a lot of different culture. It's a mix of culture because all of those islands were really influenced by the people and that came in and colonized them and founded them. So we have a great influence of Spanish, French, African. So all these cultures come together and make it a really interesting place to be. So when you go to the Caribbean, what would you see? Well, first of all, almost all the islands have these gorgeous beaches and gorgeous views and blue clear water. There are so many things that grow in the Caribbean. So, for example, in Puerto Rico, there is a rainforest, a UK rainforest. So there are lots of different flowers, from hibiscus to iris to just beautiful colored flowers and trees, mangroves, and palm trees that actually produce coconuts. Now, that sounds pretty cool, which it is. And here is a gentleman that's climbing up a coconut tree. Right up there, he's going to pull them down. The thing about coconuts is they can weigh a couple of pounds. And when they fall that far, you do not want to be underneath one of those because they can knock you down. So coconut trees or palm trees that grow coconuts are one of the things that you'll see grow. Also, there's a lot of different kinds of animals that are in the Caribbean. Some of them are things like manatees, like we talked about. But one of the things that I used to see a lot when I was in the Caribbean was the iguana. Now, when you think of an iguana, it is kind of it's a large lizard, essentially. So the thing about iguanas is that they're not this size. They're not even this size. They can be huge. And many times when we were driving down the road, we would have to stop and allow the iguana to pass onto the other side of the road. The other thing that they have that are just really neat are these little tiny frogs called coquilles. Now, coquilles are named because they make this wonderful sound, which I'm going to play in a little bit, that actually says its name. It says coquille, coquille. So they're these little tiny tree frogs that you'll hear there as well. Now, in addition to all the flora and the fauna there, there's a lot of culture there. So they like to celebrate just like we do in Louisiana because there's so many influences and so many things to celebrate. Many of the people there also, most of the islands, celebrate Mardi Gras, and they're what they call as Carnival. Most of the time it's about the same time ours is, but oftentimes it could be celebrated in some of the islands separately. So they dress up in many, many beautiful costumes, and they have bands, and they have people marching to celebrate Carnival. So that's one of the things they like to celebrate. Now, one of the things if you were to come into any of the Caribbean islands, that includes Puerto Rico, Jamaica, are just the colors that are just so prevalent there, and all of their buildings. So oftentimes this is taken in downtown San Juan, old San Juan, which is right near a fort in San Juan. There's a great deal of history in all of the islands because they held a prevalent point in history. But these are what some of the houses look like. And that is going to be true in many, many of the Caribbean nations. They're just these bright, beautiful colors of houses and buildings everywhere. So that is really appealing. Now, if you were living there, let's say you are a student at in one of the Caribbean islands, there'd be some things that you might like to do. Some of the sports that are very, very popular throughout the Caribbean is baseball. Baseball is huge in the Caribbean and the Caribbean nations. So is soccer and another sport which is called cricket. Now, cricket is kind of hard to explain, but they use a bat that is kind of flat, and there's two people batting at one time, and they're on a big field that kind of looks like a baseball field, and they have this thing called a wicket that is behind them. Anyway, it's very, very popular. So if you grew up in the Caribbean, it's quite possible that you would be playing a sport like baseball or even cricket. Now, food. So the thing about food, like I said, is there's so many wonderful influences, and the people that live there use everything that is there on the island to their avail. So right beside me, you'll see some of the fruit. So all these fruits are grown here in the Caribbean. So we have these small bananas called manzano bananas. We have the mango, which is grown, of course, a pineapple, which is delicious. And these are actually come from a plantain. Now, a plantain is a large fruit that looks a lot like a banana, but it's larger, and its taste is not as sweet. So they use it like potatoes. They mash it, they fry it, tostada, and then in this case, these are chips, plantain chips. So they are very commonly used, just like we use potatoes. But you will see those in a lot of meals. So for example, if you were to go to Cuba. Now, Cuba has a lot of Spanish and African influence. So something you might eat there would be arroz con pollo. So rice and chicken would be something that you eat there. There's also the famous Cuban sandwich that they have specialized in. If you go to Puerto Rican, there's a lot of Latin American and Spanish influences. You may eat plantains, cassava, which is a root, paella, which is a rice with seafood, conch salad. Now, conch is a animal that grows in a large shell like this. They call it a snail, but it kind of has a consistency of maybe like a oyster, if you will. But they put those in different dishes as well, not the shell itself, but the animal. So you might have conch salad, flan, which is like a pudding, if you will. That's something they like to make. So that's maybe something you would eat there. Now in Jamaica, they use a lot of different spices that they have that grow there in plants, and so they might do curry goat is something that you might eat there. Lots of seafood, the fresh fruits are very common for a meal. And in Dominican Republic, for example, one of the islands in the Caribbean, for breakfast you might have a mango to start with, maybe fried egg, fried salami, which is not something we're used to for breakfast, and maybe some avocado. But something you'll see throughout the Caribbean in terms of food are going to be beans, plantains, sweet potatoes, chickpeas. Those are all very, very common. So one of my favorite things about the Caribbean is the love for life and entertaining and all of that. So music plays a huge role in the Caribbean in their culture. So there's different kinds of music. So for example, the merengue is very popular in into the Dominican Republic. This is an example of merengue music. You'll hear the beat and the singing, very, very fast. That's something that people might dance to. Now, you also notice it's in Spanish. So 25% of people living in the Caribbean speak English, English speakers. About the rest of them are Spanish speakers with a little bit of French dotted in there as well. So a lot of the songs you are going to hear are going to be in Spanish. So there's another type of music, and it is called salsa music. And this is something that you might see people dancing to in Puerto Rico. A little bit different. So that is salsa music. Another type of music that you might hear perhaps in Trinidad and Tobago, which are two small, less friendly islands, is something called calypso. Just like every part of the culture of the Caribbean, it's a mixture of so many things. I hope someday that you guys might have an opportunity to explore some of these wonderful islands. But I thank you that you came along with me today, and I will see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.